Imagine what it would be like to cross a vast desert with no shelter from the blazing sun. Well, if you wanted to trade in West Africa during the 1400s, there was little choice. In this first-person narrative, you'll join a young boy as he recounts his first journey to a place known for its riches, trade, and culture, the legendary city of Timbuktu. In this first-person narrative, a young boy tells us about traveling with his father and brothers across West Africa to the bustling trade center of Timbuktu. You'll learn about what they traded, how deals were made, and what it felt like to step into the Golden City for the first time. The boy's voice shows excitement, pride, and even a bit of nervousness. All key elements of first-person storytelling. You can find the complete passage linked in the description below. It includes 5 multiple-choice questions that test your critical thinking, and a section where you can write a brief summary. Finally, you can hold down your left control button on your keyboard and use your mouse wheel or trackpad to alter the size of the text so that it is more comfortable for your eyes. Before we break down each paragraph within the passage, we'll take a look at some important vocabulary. These words help you unlock the meaning of the text. Learning vocabulary in context like this improves not just your reading, but also your writing and speaking skills. The more you understand the words, the more clearly you'll understand the deeper messages in the passage. We begin with the narrator setting the scene. He's back home after his journey and is excited to share what happened. He's clearly hungry and tired from travel, but proud of what he experienced. The passage uses descriptive language to bring this moment to life. Now, let's take a look at the vocabulary for this paragraph. Feel free to pause the video now to allow you the time to preview the language used. Now that we've looked at some of the vocabulary we may need for paragraph 1, let's read it together. Long ago in Western Africa, bands of traders traveled to the city of Timbuktu to buy goods in exchange for gold. The following account is given by a boy describing his first trip to the famous city. He is with a group of friends in the year 1450. My father has been carrying gold to sell in Timbuktu since he was young. He, my brothers and I, joined other travelers with their goods and camels in a caravan. Now I've come home and can tell you about that city of gold. My feet are still sore from walking along the dusty roads, but my heart is full from everything I've seen and learned. The journey was long and arduous, but each step brought us closer to a place I had only imagined from my father's stories. I'm famished. I haven't eaten since this morning. Let's enjoy this small repast together while I talk. The second paragraph jumps to the end of the trip, where the narrator explains just how successful it was. Words like gainful and immense show the size of their trade. There's even a moment where the father wisely turns down an offer, giving us insight into his character. Now, let's take a look at the vocabulary for this paragraph. Feel free to pause the video now to allow you the time to preview the language used. Now that we have reviewed the vocabulary we may need for the paragraph, let's begin. Let's take a look at how the narrator describes the end of their journey. I'll start at the end. What a gainful expedition! You saw the great loads of goods we brought home. Immense packages of salt, some expressly for our own use, but most for trade here and to the south. We profited more than usual, because the buyers of gold wanted more than was available. One man even offered to lend my father gold at interest so we could trade more. Father refused, saying, "Lend your money and lose a friend." I admired how confidently he declined, and I'm beginning to understand why preserving relationships matter more than profit. Here, the narrator contrasts his own early ideas about trading with his father's clever planning. We see that his father isn't just experienced, he's ingenious. The story shows how wise preparation and connections make a big difference in trade. This is a key moment when we can see how respect, tradition, and deals were made. Words like dispatched, instantaneous, and recede create a vivid picture of movement and decision-making. Now, let's take a look at the vocabulary for this paragraph. Feel free to pause the video now to allow you the time to preview the language used. Now that we have reviewed the vocabulary we may need for the paragraph, let's begin. Let's read how the narrator compares his early thinking to his father's actions. Before the journey, I had imagined that we would trade a handful here and there. What an inept trader I would become if not for my father. He is an ingenious man who knows his way around the world. Before we even entered the city, we met up with a wealthy merchant and his men. They brought us much salt in exchange for our gold. My father and this merchant chewed cola nuts and spoke like old friends. Then the merchant dispatched his men, ordering them back to their camp. Their compliance was instantaneous, and I watched them recede into the distance. Irked by my idling, my father told me to stop gawking like an oaf and start packing the salt. Finally, the narrator reaches the city. We see bright clothes, busy marketplaces, and people from all over. The word apparel shows the range of culture in Timbuktu. There's a quick meal and then the excitement of arriving in a new place. Now let's take a look at the vocabulary for this paragraph. Feel free to pause the video now to allow you the time to preview the language used. Now that we have reviewed the vocabulary we may need for the paragraph, let's begin. Let's read how the narrator describes entering Timbuktu for the first time. We ate a quick meal and doused the fires. At last, I entered the city. There were people in Timbuktu from everywhere. They wear all sorts of apparel and speak many languages. It's a busy place, but exciting, with massive mosques and palaces and markets. The streets pulse with life, as merchants shout their prices and musicians play in the square. I saw dancers, poets, and even scholars debating under the shade of trees. The whole place shimmered like it was made of gold, or perhaps it just felt that way because it was everything I had dreamed of. In the final paragraph, the narrator shares a more personal reflection. He admits his fears, but shows how everything turned out well. The word misgivings reveals that his story is also about growth and courage. Now, let's take a look at the vocabulary for this paragraph. Feel free to pause the video now to allow you the time to preview the language used. Now that we have reviewed the vocabulary we may need for the paragraph, let's begin. Let's see how the narrator closes the story with a personal note. We exchanged the rest of our gold in the marketplaces. Because there was so much happening, the time went quickly. Now that I am home, I confess that I had some misgivings before I went. I feared thieves would attack our caravan. I wondered if the city might be raided or besieged while we were there. But everything went smoothly on my first visit. Next time, I hope to learn even more and perhaps handle some of the deals myself, if my father allows it. I can hardly wait till we return. Now that we have completed the passage together, we will move on to some multiple choice reading comprehension questions. These will not be answered to allow you to complete the exercise yourself, which is linked in the description below. Also, don't worry about whether you have the right answer or not. The exercise is coded to accept the correct answer only. Let's quickly go through the navigation tools. We have the back button here that takes us to the previous page. We have the next button here that takes us to the next question. And we have the skip button here, which is the one with the circle around it. It will allow you to skip over any questions you may have already answered if you need to go back and reread the passage. This question asks what the narrator's father's refusal to borrow gold suggests about his character. That means you need to infer his values and priorities based on what he chooses not to do. Focus on the deeper meaning behind the father's actions. Rather than looking for a literal reason, consider what this choice reveals about how he handles relationships, risk, and trust. This type of question strengthens your ability to interpret indirect character traits, a key reading skill that helps you understand motivation and moral reasoning in a story. This question asks how the narrator's thoughts about trading changed from before the journey to after living through it. To answer, compare the narrator's expectations with the reality he encountered. Focus on the shift in understanding and how assumptions gave way to surprise or growth. Look for clues in the text that contrast his early ideas with what he learned through experience. This question builds your skills in tracking character development and recognizing how first-hand experiences can reshape someone's viewpoint, a key part of narrative comprehension. This question asks what the father's reaction reveals about the relationship between him and his son. To answer, focus on what the father's behavior suggests, not just what he says, but why he says it. You're looking for clues that show his expectations, values, and teaching approach. Is he dismissive, encouraging, or trying to shape his son's behavior in a particular way? This question sharpens your ability to analyze character dynamics, a vital reading skill for understanding how relationships develop and how people influence one another in a story. This question asks why the narrator uses the word ingenious to describe his father. To answer it, you need to understand what ingenious means, not just the definition, but how it's used in the story. Look for examples of the father's behavior that show cleverness, problem-solving, or inventiveness. Avoid answers that confuse cleverness with deception or simple knowledge. This question helps you build vocabulary in context skills, a critical reading strategy that lets you figure out meaning based on how a word is used in real situations. This question asks you to figure out why the narrator had misgivings before going to Timbuktu. That means understanding what the word misgivings suggests. Feelings of doubt, hesitation, or nervousness. To answer correctly, you'll need to connect that emotion to the narrator's situation. Was he worried about a danger, uncertainty, or feeling unprepared? This question helps you build emotional inference and vocabulary in context skills, both essential for understanding character motivation and how feelings are revealed through word choice. Our last section is where you can practice your ability to summarize what you have read. My suggestion is to think about the main points of the passage and to consider reflecting on the content of the multiple choice questions. Here, you can type your summary into the text box provided. When you are finished, hit the Submit button and another button will appear. This button allows you to see an example answer so that you can compare your writing with a sample. Next, read all the way down to where a Continue button will take you to the final page. In this lesson, we journeyed alongside a young trader to the golden city of Timbuktu. As we followed his first-person account, we practiced more than just reading. We explored how personal experiences shape perspective, analyzed character traits through action and dialogue, and strengthened our ability to infer meaning from context. From uncovering the meaning of ingenious to understanding emotional terms like misgivings, we saw how vocabulary and storytelling work together to bring history and culture to life. Thanks for reading with me. Be sure to like, subscribe, or both to let me know if you would like to see more of this material. See you next time.